What's up, everybody? Welcome to the So On Time podcast. I'm your co-host, Deja.
And I'm your other co-host, Dre.
We're growing in our relationship with Christ, and we would love for you to be a part of our village and grow with us.
This walk with Christ is not easy, so we're here to educate and encourage along the way.
Thank you so much for tuning in, and we pray that this message is so on time.
Yeah.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the So On Time podcast. I am your co-host, Deja.
And I'm Dre. I'm also a co-host.
Hopefully, y'all been watching. Y'all been tuning in. We've been doing this now 2.5 months, so y'all kind of know how this goes. But I think today we're going to get straight into the topic.
What's the topic for today?
Today's topic, y'all, is about how me and your lovely co-host, Dre, broke up. Last episode, we're kind of just flowing off of that. So last episode, if you haven't listened to it, go back and watch it. We talked about how we met in college and how we stopped being friends, or like why we stopped talking for a season. And so today's episode is about how we started dating and why we broke up. So do you want to start us off, or you want me to kind of explain, like, how did we even start dating? How do we move from an 8-year friend zone to now we're dating?
Yeah, like she said, we've been friends for a very long time now. It kind of really just started with a conversation because we never really expressed our feelings for one another. You want to add more details?
Okay, so that's your perspective. So for me, it started when we started talking about the podcast. It started when we were younger. That was so good. I'm so proud of you. All right, so my perspective is, Dre and we started talking a lot more last year when we decided that we were going to actually go forward with the podcast. So in us talking, we're fasting, we're doing Bible studies together, all of these things. And at the time, I was actually dating another guy, right? So this guy asked me about like the friendships that I have, and I let him know I got a guy best friend. And he just harped on this thing like so many times. So he asked me multiple times, like, well, why aren't you with this best friend? He asked me at least like 3 times. First time, I just brushed it off. Second time, I kind of got irritated because I was like, okay, here we go with this. And then the third time, I was like, that's a really good question. I genuinely don't know. Like, let me go ask this guy. And my mindset was, because this was during our fast in February, I was like, I'm going to ask Dre, why did we never date? From a perspective of like, we're going to do a podcast and people are going to see how we interact with each other, and they're either one, going to assume we're together, or two, ask like, why are we not together? So I asked them, why we're not or why we never dated. And that led to a very long conversation of us just kind of expressing how we did feel in college, but kind of suppressed because neither one of us thought we liked each other.
Yep, I agree with that.
So that's what started us.
I agree with that because
that's what happened. Yeah, that's literally what happened. So it just started from, it was just a conversation. And from there, we kind of like teetered on the fence of, do we actually do this? Like, what if this fails? This is going to ruin our friendship, all of these different things. So that's what led to us dating. What's your perspective on that relationship? What do you have to say about that? Or like, why do you think the relationship ended? Why didn't it work?
It was the wrong time for a relationship, but it was also the right time for a relationship.
Okay, so tell me, why was the right time for a relationship?
Like, it was the right time for the relationship just because of where we were in life.
Where were we in life?
I was at a moment of I was in a moment of relationships don't matter. Like, I was in a place where I felt like isolation was going to be the best medicine for me.
Okay.
And that helped that because it's never good. It's never good to isolate yourself. Mm-hmm. And two, I learned a lot in that. And one of those was really understanding my emotions and how to deal with it. So
that's fair.
I would say that for those 2 reasons, that's why it was a wrong moment for a relationship, because I had neither one of those in check.
So the same reason why I was right is the same reason why I was wrong.
Yeah. Because I'm sitting here thinking like I need to be isolated. If I have the mindset like I want to be isolated and alone, don't get into a relationship because you're not feeling that right now. And one, I don't have any control over my emotions. I can't be emotionally unstable and get into a relationship.
That's good. So
that's why.
Okay. So you feel like you need to be healed before you get into a relationship?
Yes.
Is that just for you, or do you think that people in general?
No, people in general, like coming through your screen right now. That to me is number one thing. If you're in a unstable point in your life emotionally, you shouldn't be trying to emotionally attach to somebody else, and that's what a relationship is. Mm-hmm. You shouldn't try to emotionally attach to anything. You really should deal with what you're feeling with at that moment of time, and the best way to deal with that is to get into a community with people that you truly believe that's going to help you with, whether it's that you just have a family that you just talk to, or you have a really tight friend group that you can just be honest with, or for most cases, really just the church that you're in. And we explain a lot of times, like, what a good church look like. You should be able to go to them and talk to them about the problems that you're having and fellowship with them and be able to move through that before you try to use something else to help mend that void that you now have in your heart.
No, I think that's real. I also want to say to that, though, I agree that you should be healed in a relationship, but I also think that you can only do so much healing, like on your own, like in your single season, if that makes sense, because there were a lot of areas that I thought I was healed in and like I had worked on in my singleness and, but then when we got together and now like you're in my face and you know what I'm saying? Not like aggressively, y'all, but like now he's mirroring me and like showing me. I realized in that there's a lot of places that I wasn't healed in or, a lot of places that I still needed to mature in. So I think that there's a balance in that. I think you need to heal as much as you can, like seek the Lord and figure out what areas he needs to show you that you need to work on. But I think you also have to understand that there's just so much that you can do when you're single. Like there's only so much that you can do when you're single. Like once you get into a relationship, those insecurities that you have that maybe you didn't recognize, like it's going to come out. And that's something that, I discovered. I'm like, dang, I'm struggling with this, or I'm insecure about this, or, whatever, because when I was single, I didn't have nothing to worry about. But yeah, I think the relationship showed me that I wasn't as healed as I thought I was. So I think that's, if you go back to our previous episode, and I think learning to be content, and I was saying how there are things about me that I recognize that I don't like, and that doesn't make for being a great wife. I realized that in us dating, like I can't take this version of me into a relationship because, it's not good. So if you had to do it all over again, I'm kidding.
I would say that my feeling of wanting to be isolated was an instinct more than was like an emotion, like wanting to be alone. Like me being hurt, which I never knew what that was, forced me to be like, okay, I want to be alone. But that was a good thing because I shouldn't have done this. Yeah, I would avoided this if I had to go back.
If you had to go back and do it again, you would do it. Honestly, I think we both agree on that. Like if we had to go back and do it again, I really asked that as a joke, but like we really can get into it for real. If I had to go back and do it all over again, and that goes into my lesson learned, because you just mentioned it and then you mentioned it on past episodes. Like the timing was wrong, mainly because Dre was dealing with heartbreak, right? And this is his first time going through this. But yeah, whenever you go through heartbreak and this is your first heartbreak, it's devastating. And I've been through heartbreak before, so I understand kind of like the stages of it better. So I basically just, as a friend, first of all, I should have been more of a friend in this situation. Like you were dealing with heartbreak and you were in a vulnerable space, if that makes sense. Like you just said, emotionally, you really weren't there. And so I should have been more responsible because I'm not in a vulnerable state. And I should have said, okay, like if we're going to do this, we can try it later, but I really need to give you space and time to heal. And for me, it was like, this is our chance. This is our opportunity. What if this never happens again? You know what I'm saying? Like, I guess you could say FOMO, you know, and then
FOMO?
Fear of missing out.
Okay.
Yeah, like, and then factoring into we're 8 years into a friendship.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, this is now or never. That's kind of do or die. Like, that was my mindset around it. And that's unrealistic. If you're supposed to be with somebody, you're going to be with them. Like, you don't have to force the timing and the season of something. At that time, I think I knew that, but I just wanted to feed my flesh. Like, I wasn't trying to feed my spirit in that. So, yeah, I definitely think that if we could go back and do it all over again, I would wait until you were healed, or at least in a more healed space, to try to date than to just try to go from basically one relationship to like a few months later into another one. And you know,
petty version of my mindset is kind of just like, you can never just have a guy best friend and everything like that. And it's like, technically I wouldn't be in the best friend category. I would just be like an ex that you cool with. And it's like, nah, because I don't like that.
You're saying now since we've dated?
Yeah.
Oh, wait. So you feel like men and women can be platonic best friends?
Yes.
Dre thinks that y'all, please comment. Please let us know, like, for real. Do y'all think that men and women can just be platonic friends? But then I got to say this too, something that we learned before I miss it. Just because you have the conversation, right? Two friends coming together and admitting that y'all have feelings for each other does not mean that y'all have to get into a relationship, or it doesn't mean that you have to get into a relationship at that time. And I think that's a lesson learned, because I looked at it like, okay, God created this opportunity. We're in the middle of a fast, right? So I'm like, of course this comes out. Like, to me, I'm piecing all the signs together, right? And it's like, God gave us an opportunity to admit how we feel about each other. Maybe that's all he wanted us to do.
Yep.
That maybe that's all he wanted us to do, and we were not supposed to get into a relationship. Like, I know for a fact I heard this podcast needed to take place.
Yep.
I didn't hear Deja date Dre. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Like, I feel like during that fast, the biggest thing was we need to learn how to be honest, and not with just
communicate.
Not just with like us, but just like with ourselves and with people.
I would agree with that. If two people are oblivious that there's mutual attraction between them, then they can continue to be friends. And I'm sorry, Dre, I just disagree with that. Like, and only because even if y'all are oblivious, there's still a point in your mind that makes you question, if you like this person, does this person like me back? And it's just a matter of time before y'all get to that space of having that conversation.
Yeah, but I feel like, again, if my man's never would have mentioned this wouldn't have happened. Because I feel like as a relationship goes on, you kind of just let things slide. And this would have been something I would have let slide.
We definitely did let this slide for a long time, but keep in mind, you were also in a relationship.
Not when we first started being friends.
What? Are you talking about? Yeah, because when we first started being friends, y'all, I asked him, because it was like we were together 24/7. I wasn't used to dudes being around me 24/7, and they just was trying to be friends. Let's keep it a total bean. So I'm kind of like, okay, I think we just friends, but I don't know. Some of the stuff he's doing, it seemed a little bit more friendly than friends usually are. So I did ask him in college, like when we were freshmen, like, hey, what are we? Like, what's going on? And his response was, what?
I thought we were friends.
But you also said you didn't want what?
That wasn't my initial response to that question. I've been told you that.
That you didn't want. Well,
the thing, I had a lot of female companions around me, and the thing that I was telling them was I didn't want a relationship. So
nah, he ain't have a lot of female. Tell it like it is. Tell them folk what it is, Sean. Them girls was on your head.
Okay, so what's the difference?
It was on your head.
What's the difference in what I'm saying and what you?
No, like, let them know, like, they was on, like.
I had a lot of female companions.
You had a lot of females shooting a shot. They saw that dye dripping down your neck, and they wanted to wipe it.
So yeah, that was the running theme. In college. It was just I didn't want a relationship, and I let the woman around me know that. So when she had asked me, what are we? At the same time, I'm thinking,
Plural.
I said women.
Women.
That's the plural version of woman.
Women. It was giving woman. Like it sounded real singular the way that you said it. He let the women know. Plural.
I don't know how many times I have to say.
All right, let me quit playing, y'all. Go ahead, tell your story.
Anyways. But yeah. So that was another thing. So when she had asked me about what are we, at the same time I'm thinking that she don't like me because there's been times where it just seemed like, okay, she not messing with the kid, you feel me? So I didn't want to have that difficult conversation because obviously when you're in college, when you're just young in general, you don't really take to rejection, and especially when you're in a space of having a lot on your table that you're not dealing with but possibly could deal with, it's kind of just like, I'd rather not just be around somebody that kind of just like rejected me off of their question. So I was like, I'm gonna play this safe, and if there's something else, she will let me know. And I ain't gonna lie, she was a very, very proficient dart player, just never hit the bullseye. But cause I was a little stupid. But yeah, so I feel like when you're oblivious, you don't really have that conversation. It's okay. Like it will just carry on.
It's just okay.
But it would still just carry on because even to say like, oh, I was in a relationship, it's like I wasn't in a relationship when it first started, and as time went on, Dre, it was just never mentioned, and it would still not be mentioned if my mans didn't bring it up because I wasn't going to bring it up.
We'll agree to disagree on can men and women be platonic friends.
They definitely can. So are we not
platonic?
Are we not platonic friends right now?
Hold on, Dre. Unless y'all just cuz on tip.
Yeah.
Are you platonic friends? Listen. So unless y'all, as a wise person that I know often says, unless there is just absolutely no mutual attraction between the two, y'all can't be friends. And I would even beg to differ with that. Like, because sometimes you're not initially attracted to a person, but as y'all spend time together and y'all get to know each other, like, you become attracted to them and their personality, and all of a sudden they look good. So it's like, I don't know if men and women can be platonic friends.
I know they can.
I would say for us, it was more difficult because we didn't have a lot of space. If y'all are just friends and y'all not kicking it often like that, then you don't have room to grow in the way that we did. Like if I just meet somebody today, for example, at work, and we just have encounters at work, we not texting, kicking it, hanging, then like, yeah, we probably could just be platonic friends. And I'm not attracted to that person. Okay, cool. But
that's the big one right there.
But yeah, but when there's some type of physical attraction and y'all always together, like, no, that's not gonna work. It's just, we'll just agree to disagree.
I mean, you just gave examples of how it could work.
So my question for you is, if you had to wrap it up and tell us overall what you learned in this, what would it be? And I know you've already mentioned like, don't isolate yourself and just how the timing was wrong. Were there any other lessons, good or bad, that you took away from this, whether it's about you personally or just the relationship aspect?
That was a really good question, Miss Co-host Deja. When something is initially brought up to you, how you feel about it is how you feel about it. Eventually things will change, but let that change come with time. Don't just try to change it in the moment just because it's kind of just like FOMO. Let it be what it is. Yeah, and it will be better for you and people that's involved. So like I feel like that's with anything. So that's something I just felt is what I learned from it as well. And to be more honest and be more upfront. What about you?
I would say what I learned is to hear what the person is saying, because I think that's what you were kind of alluding to just now in a sense, because you said multiple times like, oh, I don't really want to be in a relationship. And for me, it was just like, I didn't listen to that. Because it's just like, nah, this just makes sense. Like, we good friends and blah, blah, blah. Like, this would be the perfect match. Like, this would just work. Instead of being like, you know what, nah, he does need time. Like, you know. So I would say just listen to what a person is telling you. Like, if they're communicating a concern, don't brush it off. because for me, it was like I've already dealt with heartbreak. So I know how this goes. And in my mind, I felt like I knew how this was going to end, you know? So I'm like, he going to get out of this. He going to go through this little whatever and we going to be good, instead of just giving you that space for the process. So I would say don't force or rush anything, especially a relationship. Oh, I would also say that, like, God is writing our own individual story. And I learned personally that I can't take someone else's experience or, you know, their journey and apply it to me. So just because something worked for someone else doesn't mean that it's going to work for me, because we've seen, or, you know, you're aware of the fact that I know of people who stories are kind of like ours, not 100%, but kind of similar. Yep. And so I would hear their stories and be like, oh, so this is just how it's going to play out for me and Dre. And it's like, no, this is a case by case scenario. Yep. Like what happened for them may not happen for you. Yep. So I learned that to not make someone else's reality my reality. And I also learned to just be a friend before anything else. Like, the basis of our relationship was we have a solid friendship. So like throughout all of this, I should have just been your friend. You know, that should have been my main priority, and just allowing things to flow and happen. I didn't necessarily allow that to happen, you know, but now I know.
Any closing remarks? Any final words?
Any closing remarks? I would say, one, to be obedient. Because yes. I know some people are going to look at this, or I've even had people ask, like, how are y'all still doing a podcast?
Bro, why can't...
You know, it's just like, how are y'all still doing a podcast? And my answer is like, I know what the Lord told me to do. I'm not going to cancel the podcast because he and I aren't in a relationship anymore, when God never specifically said y'all need to be in a relationship. So one, I would just say be obedient and still carry out whatever God has for you. Don't let your emotions and your thoughts get in the way. And I would say that I do believe that even though we didn't work out, I do think that you can move from the friend zone, even if you've been in the friend zone for a long time, because some people have been in the friend zone longer than we were. I do think that you actually can successfully make that transition, just again in the right timing. So I don't want anyone to hear this, and if you're anything like me, be like, it didn't work for them, so maybe it won't work in my situation. Like, no, everybody is different. If you feel like God is leading you out of the friend zone with somebody, continue to seek God about that thing, but, you know, potentially pursue it. So you don't have the fear of, if we do this, then our friendship is going to be ruined, right. Because that was a fear for us. And look at us now, you know. But that's also a case-by-case scenario. Some people, y'all friendship might be done if y'all tried and it don't work. So, I don't know.
And then whatever endeavors you had going on.
Yep.
Thank you guys for tuning in to the S1.E9 podcast. Like, comment, subscribe on YouTube, and make sure you guys listen to the podcast on Apple and Spotify. And until next time, bye.
Bye, guys.